Don, you go by another kind of name. Do you want to tell everybody watching what your other name
My
is?
theater name? Oh, okay, yeah, sure. It's Donald the Soul Man Hyman, okay? And the reason I got in there is because I'm a sweat singer, writer, actor, and a teacher. So when I was doing this, I realized I was looking through, Googling my name, and I found out there is another Donald Hyman. He's African American. He's in the theater, and he's from the city. So I said, I don't want anybody picking up my paychecks. So
Yeah,
I did a lot of soul music at that time. So I decided to put Donald the Soul Man Hyman in there, and somehow it stuck. I still run into people that say, "Hey, Soul Man, what's up?" You know?
Yeah.
And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay.
No, it's great. It's great.
In
Yeah.
fact, that's when I met you. I was doing
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I met you. Gosh, I can't name a year, but it was quite a long time ago.
and that was my introduction to public access television because
You were a staple on Access. You were on our shows. I remember when I first got involved in community access. I think it was in 2004, between 2014 and 2004 and 2005. You were on a lot of those shows. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember you coming on, and what I remember about you was you were very. You had an improv kind of spirit, where it's like if someone just told you, "All right, can you show us what to do?" and you were like, "All right, yeah, move the cameras back. I want to show you I can dance and sing," and you had no like filter on just doing anything and anything that you wanted in the spot.
It was
Like,
an intrinsic motivation,
which is a skill that not a lot of people possess. I'm telling you.
like I was saying, it's kind of like an intrinsic motivation to finally be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah, sure.
And it wasn't Hollywood or it wasn't Broadway, but
Right.
in the reality sense, I think that I was observing what the power of public access television is for like becoming a local star.
Yeah, sure.
And I would see you because you're like a one-man show with the technology, and you run out and put a boom mic out and say, try it again or move it over there. And then the next thing I know is like that particular public access station
Yeah.
merged with something, and then you were over at our large theater, Proctor's.
Absolutely, yeah. So we rebranded the community access channels as from Schenectady Access Cable to Open Stage Media.
At Proctor's Theater.
At Proctor's, which is a bigger organization, so we had more access to a lot of different politicians and access to all this other stuff. It was a totally different animal, yeah.
I
miss the old days, by the way, when it was just like a huge building with all this video equipment, and you could just basically the ethic was you just do whatever you want. I mean, if you got like we had, I remember one time, and I was like a younger kid then. I didn't know much about anything, and I was there alone by chance, and one of the guy from Troy, I can't remember, Steve. Independent, the Center Sanctuary for Independent Media.
Oh yeah.
What's his Steve? Anyway, Steve, he brought George Stoney to our studio because we were one of the older access channels because the GE association with General Electric and Schenectady and things. We were kind of one of the, we were basically a really old access channel. And he brought him there, and he was an older guy at that time. I had no idea who he was or anything like that. We came in the studio and sat him down for an interview, and they did like an hour of just history. I mean, George went off and just laid down all these jewels. And me, I'm like a young kind of kid. I didn't really know much about it. And Steve's like, "This is Zeb. This is George Stoney. Meet this guy."
Were you
and I'm
impressed?
like, well, not really, because I didn't really know about the history of Access TV. I was kind of bushy-tailed. I was just kind of excited to be around all this video equipment and learn, and definitely just to be there by myself in this huge building running this whole thing. And then we did the hour, and we aired it obviously on the channel, and then but well, years later, you wonder like, oh man, like like, this is before we were archiving things on YouTube, before we were doing, you know, it was, I mean, back then I think it was still like DVDs and we still had VHS decks. I mean,
That's
it was a
right,
long
that's
time
right.
ago.
No, that
So
was-
we didn't save a lot of stuff back
Okay,
then. And
okay.
it was one of those, it was the moment where I'm like, damn, how the hell did we not save that tape?
Yeah.
And but anyway, because then you know obviously he passed and his legacy still remains and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, damn, yeah, I have like an hour of lost, you know, videotape of him in the studio. But let's get back on track. What
We
were we
are.
talking
We
about?
never got on track. It's all relevant because we're talking about our early days meeting.
Yeah, okay.
And like I said, when I would come to those shows and there would be people from the community, all kinds of people from all walks of life.
I don't want to say it was a zoo, but it was like an eclectic kind of.
It was definitely eclectic and just like I said, these are people who count and you don't see them on regular mainstream television.
I
okay?
I remember they did marathons back then. Like, oh, we're gonna go all night and raise money. You remember those days
Yeah.
with Carla Page, and she's just like, she had different people on. I mean, it was just a different aesthetic back then. A guy would come on, I'm gonna eat this whole jar of mayonnaise. Please donate. Just weird stuff, man.
mean,
like you couldn't even imagine people doing that these
but
days.
still, you know, what is that? Everybody is a star, or the
Yeah, right.
Andy Warhol. Everybody's 15 minutes of fame. I think it's a lot larger than that. I think it's finally getting people the opportunity to open up a box and open that box and get another box, and inside that box they find a mirror and then they look at themselves for the first time and they're happy. So I mean,
Yeah.
it works because it works. And moving along, I continued in the path, and the door finally opened for me, where I got a chance to start producing and directing my own public access show,
Albany Temple Spectrum.
Albany Temple Spectrum. And the thing I did with that was I had worked in theater, community theater, I should say, in the Albany, New York, Schenectady, Troy area. And I met so many talented people that were actors, musicians, writers,
Yeah.
artists, visual artists, and they really didn't have too many venues in the capital region to express themselves. And unless you went to New York City and got a Grammy, or you went to Hollywood and became a star, the mainstream press did not have too much time for you.
Yeah.
And my thing was, this place could be like another Paris. It could explode any minute. The cultural, I had never gone to any place, and I'm from New York City, where I ran into so many people that were so talented, but at the same time didn't have a place to express themselves. So I promised myself when I got this blessing, which blessing means you've got something, now go out and do something with it.
Yeah.
I went out to those people, and those were the stories that I worked on, and to give those people opportunity to get some exposure.
Yeah.
And they were thankful for it. And then that was a part of Channel Albany, and Channel
Yep, I
Albany and Schenectady Television, with Open Stage Media, was separate. I mean, we knew about each other. I was able to thank you the opportunity
I remember
to come in
all
and,
well.
and begin
Yep.
having my shows shown there, because some of my guests were from that area. And so I formed a bond with
for
Open
sure,
Stage Media.
for sure.
And then the day came when I was on the board, and we merged. I'm vice chairman now. I was my vice chairman then, and we merged with your. We're now one, and we got all the same slots and everything. But that's when things really took off, because no sooner than that happened, maybe a year or two later,
Yeah.
the pandemic set in, and everybody was kind of in an uproar. Is that the right word? And production wasn't going on that much. And one of the things that happened is most of the theaters in our capital region, as well as around the nation,
Shut down.
were shut down.
And by the way, we should say, well, our PEG operation is housed in a umbrella I don't want to say corporation. It's a nonprofit entity called Collaborative. The Proctor's Collaborative. I think it's just the Collaborative, which is they run 3 theaters. The main one is in Schenectady. There's a Lort Theater that they run that's in Albany, New York, and then they also run one in Saratoga Springs called Universal Preservation Hall.
Yeah.
And then soon to be one come to Troy. Oops. But that's happening. So we're in the Tri-City. Is that? Well, Saratoga's not Tri-City, but
The
capital region. So it's a bigger organization. PEG Access is a small. I mean, they do a bunch of other things with the community. There's a school performing arts. There's all these other kind of things. So it's a bigger operation. And yeah, and I just wanted to give some.
Thank you.
I just wanted to give some
Thank you for
round that out.
Thank you for that clarification. And for those out there that are watching that are not from the capital region like we are, in your area, I'm sure you have a large theater that would be comparable to Proctor's, that would have mainstream entertainers and mainstream theater. So Proctor's is like, we would get like the Frank Sinatra.
It's where Lion King comes,
Right,
and Wicked, and all the
Right.
Hamilton, and all that kind of stuff.
And large, big name entertainers will come there. We have tickets that would sell for Tony Bennett or something like that. Okay, so you probably have a theater or performing arts center that would be similar to that. That's ours. So during this time period when COVID came in, that particular house was closed down and shut, as well as all the other ones. And the same thing was happening around the country. And I believe we had a meeting because we were trying to do something for Freedom of Speech Week.
Right.
Which was developed by our friends down at Brick.
Oh, that's right.
Our friends down
Yep,
there. There's a Freedom of Speech Week that happens through the Washington, and then they decided to make a Freedom of Speech Week
Correct. Yeah.
through Brick in Brooklyn to focus on people in community media. So I said we did a small version where we walked around.
Yeah, we've done it
asked
before
people-
in the past.
asked
Before
people-
COVID, we
before
did.
COVID.
Yeah.
And we asked people in the region what did freedom of speech mean to them, and we set some.
Such an open-ended question. And the answers that we get are just so. Some of them are just so bizarre. Some of them are right on point. Some of them are just all over the map. It was just interesting to hear all those perspectives because people just took it, wherever they whatever they thought about it, and it was kind of interesting.
Yes, it was, and the sense that when they did this, these are people that the regular mainstream news people, they wouldn't talk to them.
No.
Unless there
They
was a
can't
tragedy
They can't
or
touch
something.
it. They can't touch
So
stuff like that.
we were doing another dynamic perspective in terms of what the human situation was at that time.
Yeah.
And the man on the street or the woman on the street or has a voice and an opinion. And we caught them, and they were glad that somebody wanted to speak to them.
Well, here's why it works, though, and I'll give you some
What's
props.
your formula?
Because I've shot together a lot with you, and I know how you kind of operate. You have a way of kind of, because people initially, when you confront them, especially in ministry, they have this barrier on them. But when you kind of like shatter that barrier and kind of make them come out of their shell a little bit. I've noticed that you have that kind of, and that's a very hard thing to do to people. When we go around and we get people come out of their shell for you, which is a very, very unique skill. Not a lot of people have that ability to do that to people. So basically what I'm saying is we always get great footage from people when we just go.
Okay.
And because it's like, and I've done that with other people that are just not, and I just want to like no, stop being so rigid with these people. You gotta kind of coax them and lead them into opening up.
Meet them where they are.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly.
Meet them where they are.
Yeah. You got to be able to assess somebody on the spot and know how to kind of, and it's a very hard thing to do. And I think it's almost like it's almost innate. It's almost like trying to think of the word. It's something that I think it's something you're kind of born with. It's kind of hard skill to learn to be that way, to kind of assess people like that.
I really don't think about it. I just, like I said, when I had this opportunity, I thought about all these people that I worked with who had all these talents and gifts, and they weren't able to express them. So now I wanted to be able to be the vessel that they would be able to do
Yeah,
that
sure,
with.
sure.
The conduit, if you would prefer. But what happened was, which was really unique, we took all the steps to show you how we connected, but then when we really fused, as they say in the business, is he said to me, we were talking about possibilities of doing something again for freedom of speech, and he comes out with this statement, I want to do something now, live. And this is in the heart of COVID. And I was like, how are we going to film something when we can't, people can't be together or whatever.
Yeah.
But the wheels started turning, and it was a kind of a warm time of the year. And I suggested, well, we still have the farmers markets running. People are allowed to go there, right? And there was a
Yeah.
farmers market near the theater. And so we put on our masks.
Oh, so much fun. Yeah.
We went to the farmers market, and people still had that life, and they were able to laugh, and we met
Yeah,
people
right.
of all shapes, sizes, and colors, and they talked their little stories. We got them to sing Midnight Train
That
to
was great.
Georgia.
Yeah. You were on like a crazy Midnight Train to Georgia kick. I don't know what is that.
and sample, we were able to sample
funny.
various little foods and
Oh, it was the best.
and
Yeah.
meet people
was
that
great.
were farmers and
Well, it came out. It was the perfect time because we were still like in that COVID. Everything was so uncertain,
Yeah, right.
And I just seen people just kind of loosen up a little bit, and it was like a nice thing to see.
we got that, and that was the initial start of Capital Region Portraits.
Right.
And then we still had the theater available, and what came up for, I believe it was
Freedom of speech thing, right? No.
Freedom of Speech thing came
That was
up.
started first, and then we did the farmers, right?
No, we did the farmers first because the
Okay.
farmers was in the summer.
Yeah.
And then Freedom of Speech came
in
up
the
again.
fall, yeah.
And this gentleman suggests, well, we can use the theater. Where we're going to film it at? We can use the theater.
Yeah.
And once we started inviting people from the community, and I mean young people, women, elderly people, some politicians, some writers, different people from different backgrounds throughout the community. I think one lady was like a college administrator.
Museum
We had-
curator.
Right. We had one minister that came
Minister,
through.
right?
lady minister.
Sure.
And everyone, a journalist, because Paul
Grundle, yeah.
was a journalist. Richard Loveridge,
Richard.
everybody was quite eloquent and very comfortable in their own setting. And what we got was a very variable and colorful idea of what freedom of speech means to a lot of different people.
Educator. The James Baldwin thing was.
Oh, she was.
Oh my God, that
she
was so good.
She
Yeah.
was over the top.
I mean, that made me really delve in and really try to
Find out more
find
about
clips of him, and I learned so much about just these interviews, and I was just like, I went on this rabbit hole of just watching all these clips, and I was like, why wouldn't we incorporate this into the piece? So it kind of evolved into almost like a like a little documentary of sorts, because her words that she were so powerful, and
She's a great
amazing.
speaker.
Yeah.
We were in the heart.
What's her name? I can't.
Oh,
No, we got put you on the spot.
Dr. Shea Butler.
Shea Butler,
And,
right? Yeah.
and we don't say that, she's going to get me.
Yeah.
Dr. Shea Butler did a wonderful job. It was that morning where we were still in COVID, so we couldn't have a group of people there at one time. So we had.
That was so weird,
We
yeah.
had from every half an hour, we had a different person
Yeah, that's
would
right.
be there. And then they would see other people and be waving to
That's
them
right,
because we
yeah.
couldn't have they had to sign that COVID waiver
Oh
form
my
and
God, yeah.
mask and the whole bit, but we were able to get it, and it's one of the more successful things that we got to do for Freedom of Speech Week. And
Well, let's talk about some other things we've done. We've done. We've done what? We've partnered with the Albany Institute.
the Albany
What's that?
Institute of History and Art. This gentleman over here.
Where?
He's so good when it comes to editing and putting a product together. And the Albany Institute of History and Art had contacted me to do a program with them, and they were having an exhibit about fashion in the 1920s, which is pretty interesting because I did study at one time at Parsons School of Design. So I said, well, the 20s and the 50s, that was the best period for clothing for men and women in
They
America.
had
As
this
far as I
a
can
beautiful exhibit.
yeah, and they asked me to do something, and I said, well, wait a minute. This is the jazz era, so you gotta like think of Harlem and what's going on there. So why don't I focus on fashion in Harlem during the 1920s, because it's really influencing the jazz era. And we did our research, and we found a lot of good material, and we actually filmed it in the museum, and we filmed it. We hadn't planned on doing this, remember?
Oh no, yeah.
We started walking
well,
around.
Sarah, who's the curator there,
Sarah Clow.
she was just like, and I was just like, well, why couldn't we just do this in front of the exhibit? And she's
Right.
like, there really isn't a reason why we couldn't. So we had to do it on a weekend when no one was there. And it was, and again, this is during COVID.
Yes,
You know, this is like
and
when museums were, not doing so. I mean, this is right when they were reopening. or
reopening.
something? Yeah.
On a very gradual.
Very-
basis.
yeah, on a
and,
very,
and you had to have a reservation and everything.
Yeah, it was different.
So the exhibit would have mannequins that had on 1920 style clothing in a room, and we would film different scenes in different parts. And of course, I had a derby for every different scene.
Oh, yeah, that was
or
great.
a different suit.
You brought your whole wardrobe, yeah.
Oh, they were wearing me out that day.
So-
That went well.
That went well. That went awesome. And then tell about the next one we did.
They had another exhibit at the Albany Institute of History and Art dealing with the railroads. And so it was Black
and
History Month.
unionizing. Yeah.
And they decided, I said, well, since it's Black History Month, why don't I do something on the Pullman porters? Because we had done something at Cafe Lena in Saratoga about 2 years before
Yeah.
called Conversations
Yeah.
in Freedom. And so Zeb said, well, let me see the script. And so I didn't realize, I sent him the draft script that had all the...
Oh my God! It was like
there were a lot of,
I'm like, what am I
had been
reading?
edited. Yes.
It's like everything was like phonetic, and I was like, what is this?
Yes.
So that-
And so we finally got that together. Now, mind you, in my mind, on stage, this takes no more than 15 minutes. In a film shoot, we were there all day.
Oh yeah.
To film.
And we were rushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At
It just
the
takes-
end.
Yeah. It was a skeleton crew. We didn't have, we are the wardrobe people. We are the lighting technicians. It was like,
two other
so everything
actresses
just takes
and
longer.
myself. But let me tell you what happened as a result of that. We showed it. We got very positive response because they put it on YouTube as well as on their website.
Hmm?
And I get this call from Sarah that this organization in New Rochelle wants to talk to me about the film.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like thrilled to no end. I call them, and it's a sorority in New Rochelle.
Oh.
And they're going to have this program for for around the holidays about the Harlem Renaissance. That's their theme for the
Oh,
year.
okay, yeah.
And they want me to be their special guest, and they want me to be interviewed, right? And they want to show clips from that. And so
Oh, that's great.
it was one of those things where it was an unexpected blessing, but the whole idea was this was another community that was touched by what we had done, and they weren't in our immediate region, but they had seen it online. So we're out there. We're still out there, right? Okay.
Yeah. So, So anyway, we're ongoing. We're going to continue the program,
Sure.
and we got lots of ideas.
That's right, because freedom of speech week is usually
And we
around-
shot a lot of things which are not.
which is around
Look,
October
and-
17th.
And yeah. And
Right?
we do have, and we do have.
Well, it's a
we
couple of
we have
things
things that are
in the
that are
can?
in the can,
Okay.
on the cutting, sitting in the cutting room,
Like jazz?
whatever you want to say.
We filmed we have a weekly jazz thing called Jazz on Jay in the summertime, and we filmed that. We filmed the Underground Railroad was very big in our area, so we talked to the people
Yes,
that
there's
run that.
a museum, the government museum.
Yes.
We did a whole thing on.
We
yeah.
we have a gentleman who was a historical landscape photographer who lives in Saratoga. We did an interview with him at Universal Preservation Hall,
Yeah.
and some of his portraits or pictures of
Oh,
famous
amazing,
people.
amazing photographer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He has, what he have?
Incredible.
Muhammad Ali, Jackson
Incredible,
5,
incredible,
Jackie
yeah.
Kennedy, the works. So
I want to see somebody because he was talking about, and this is
What do you want
his,
to see?
his medical, because he was like going on about how he was
He was a
filmed
medical
he
photographer.
filmed yeah, like trauma, medical trauma, and like surgeries and
Yeah,
things like that.
it-
Oh my God, like the stuff. I can only imagine all the things that
and now it's pretty things like at the racetrack, you know, and
I wanted to show some of that
weddings.
stuff just for shock value.
Yeah, and we
the
reached out to
piece.
him because there was a fire in his building.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah,
he
yeah.
lost his studio,
Yeah.
and so we reached out to him during that time period. In fact, the whole community did. But those are the type of people that don't normally get acknowledged or recognized in the mainstream
Fascinating
media.
stuff, yeah.
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 And we're not knocking what they do because they do serve a purpose, but I'm saying that there are people in those communities that are just as talented and gifted, and public access is a blessing to them because it gives them an opportunity to be recognized and let people know that they're out there and they're doing what they're doing. If it's just making cookies, or maybe
Everyone has a story.
writing a
Yeah.
poetry or whatever, you know, this is somewhere where at least they can express themselves. And we have to mention Jeremy Clow, the wonderful Mr. Kirk Daniels, who's worked on us with many projects.
Aprecia, give a shout out to Aprecia, who's the current.
Yes, we have a new
Channel
studio
Albany
coordinator
studio
with
coordinator.
Channel
She's
Albany.
doing awesome, by the way.
Miss Aprecia, we
she's-
love you, okay? And the whole staff over there that I work with at Channel Albany on the board, they hang in there and they've done some marvelous things. So we look forward to, this conference. We're in Chicago, by the way, okay? And the people that I've met here have been outstanding. Tom Norton, for one. Hi, Tom. The workshops, and my friend Zeb was a speaker at one of the workshops yesterday.
No.
Weren't you? Oh, yes,
Let me
yes.
correct the record. No, I'm on the Northeast board,
He's
and then yeah,
the Alliance for Community,
Media Northeast.
the Northeast
region.
board, right, the regional board. All these things have been just wonderful, and the networking that goes on. We're having an awards luncheon in about an hour, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and
We
then
should-
tonight we're gonna have another award thing, and we're going to a blues clubs afterward, and really be able to network before we go back to our various places, and just hear and see what other people are doing in their regions and sharing. So I'm really taking a lot of things in. I'm like a little sponge here, and when I get back, it'll all hit me that this happened, but I'll be able to share this with my my peers, my friends.
Wonderful.
Are we out of here?
I think so.
Well, can I say my famous line?
You should do a song.
No. Because of you.